We've had a great response to this topic too, and some great feedback and suggestions. This year, our webinars have been focused on where we want to be in 2030 from an organisational design perspective. So we've done strategic, we've done workforce planning, we've done retention. We looked at Zoomers last time, accountability, and today we have the topic of leadership. So there's still a whole lot of folks logging in. So kia ora, welcome. Please introduce yourself in the chat and where you're from. I am on Gadigal land and welcome. Today's topic is leadership. Kia ora. We have a great support from across the ditch. I love it. And there we've got Margaret River. Great spot. Welcome to everyone. I get a little frustrated sometimes when I chat to organisations about leadership because there's lots of old mindsets, and I hope to actually challenge some of that thinking today with about what leaders really do need to be as we rocket towards the 2030s successfully. We've got machine learning upon us, AI agents, and we will not be able to reap the benefits of any of these time-saving and efficient tools unless we have leaders that are embracing the new world. So I think a whole lot of you have logged in now, so let's crack on with our webinar. I am Evelyn Muhlenberg. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Managing Director of Learning Ventures, and I will be one of your co-hosts today on the webinar. And let me introduce you to Xavier Heyman.
Hi everyone and welcome. So I've been with Learning Ventures for a little now. As you can probably hear from my accent, I was not born in Australia. I'm from France, from the Champagne region actually. So I think I like to think that I bring a little sparkle to the team. As head of client engagement, I spent my time connecting with you, with people, with organizations, understanding what is really happening in your world with your team and what you need most to succeed. And today I'm very, very excited to connect with you all on the big questions of leadership and how AI is reshaping the workplace. So actually, speaking about connections, this is a QR code on your screen at the moment. Please scan it to connect with us on LinkedIn, and I would love to continue the conversation with you after the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zav. And I'll be back to Zav again towards the end of the webinar. But first of all, a little bit of admin that we have to go, and salute, yes, from Lisa. Karen and I will look after the chat and any incoming questions. I usually get to the questions somewhere along the line in the webinar or at the end. Please say hello, absolutely ask questions and make comments. I have 2 polls that are going there and some questions that go with that. There is a survey at the end for feedback. By all means, use the chat to one another as the webinar is going on. And if you're interested in any of our previous webinars, by all means, just let us know and we can send you the links. As most of our regulars will know, our webinars are brought to you by one of our strategic pillars. We have 3 strategic pillars. We like to challenge conventional thinking, and we do like to sort of rattle people's thinking about what the future holds and what might be some possibilities. We believe that leadership really matters to the success of organisations, and we like to deliver results. Any change or transformation should deliver results. Today, not surprising, as we're talking about leadership in the age of AI, our webinar is brought to you by Leadership Really Matters. It is going to be one of the key success factors of Workforce 2030. And that is that leadership will actually start to trickle and become more ubiquitous as people start leading teams. The hierarchy, I say, and challenge conventional thinking is dead. And I know that many organizations still with hierarchies have got plenty of time and plenty of legs to go with that hierarchy, but we do need to start thinking about our organizations differently, and particularly our workforces that will be people, AI agents, all collaborating and working together. And for Generation Z and Zoomers, who are going to be the people that are going to be the bulk of our workforce by 2030, or the bulk of the workers in the workforce, leadership is really going to matter going forward. So that's our strategic pillar for today. Leadership in the age of AI. I think that every article we see these days in any reputable newsfeed, newsletter, and newspapers, they still have newspapers, these days is rarely a headline that doesn't go without the letters A and I in it. Most commercial and organizational conversations refer to AI, and people actually are worried about AI. They're worried about the change and the transformations that come with AI implementations. There are tech startups that are now just solely AI or AI agent driven. So let's unpack what some of that impact will be on us. And I've got a clicking issue. Today, we're going to cover about the skills and mindsets that leaders will need in the world of AI or in the workforce going forward. And a lot of that is about being able to adapt. So what makes that adaptive leader? And we'll look at 3 practical steps as we go through at the end for things that you can do to make your workforce a little bit more future-proof for this age. So what AI is redefining skills and mindsets. So what do we need? Back in 2021, Paul Hudson, who is the CEO of Sanofi, was one of the first CEOs to actually allude to the new world of work, inclusive of AI and AI agents and AI bots. Now, I don't actually think he's a guru. He's very pharmaceutical, and pharmaceutical is a fairly sort of upbeat kind of sector. It doesn't have the same sort of transitions that other sectors do. And he's very commercially focused. But he actually does say some really interesting things. And whilst this is his Harvard Business Review article from 2021, he's actually got a recent TED Talk. And Karen's actually going to load the link into the chat for you in terms of the TED Talk. He likes to call AI part of the 4th industrial revolution. Now, we know steam drove mechanical production, electricity drove mass production, technology drove automation, and now we've got this cyber or digital age, which is driving robots and AI. What Paul talks about in most conversations he has with other CEOs is about governance, controls, rules, and principles. Things that actually display a fear of AI. How can we control it? And I know that any evolutionary transformation initiative or technology can be used for both good and evil. But as we know, control and prohibition never drive successful outcomes. So whilst we do need to actually look at governance and some of those things, we actually have to flip the narrative for school leavers all the way through to the CEO of what leadership is. AI, or as I prefer to call it, intelligent technology, is a huge opportunity. And Paul talks about that in his TED Talk. It will take away the drudgery of work. So we all actually need to start embracing it and lead the transformation through what he calls permacrisis. Now, I thought I'd put the definitions of permacrisis. It's actually permanent and crisis put together, and it was added to the Collins Dictionary in 2022. And it actually describes this extended period of prolonged instability and insecurity that results from the succession of interconnected crises. Now, these crises are not isolated, but build on one another and lead to a state where traditional crisis management doesn't work. So at the moment, we have just had a cost of living economic downturn. Some would say we're still in it. We need to save the planet and do the climate change because of the weather conditions that we're getting. We need to stop the next pandemic. We've got political conflicts. We've got social unrest. All of these paralleled with the speed of technological change. So we are in permacrisis. And this constant succession erodes financial and human resilience, and it makes individuals and societies much more vulnerable to shocks that are coming. So they say we need to lead this sort of a climate in a series of sprints, only one of which is business as usual. So to business as usual, we also need to add transformation and innovation sprints, which will ensure that we're up to date with the change. And we also need to add crisis management sprints to protect and support the parts of our organisation that are under stress. And most of our organisations have all of these three things happening at the same time. In this environment, leaders will need a very different mindset. We need to actually build this resilience, agility, and an open mindset in our workplaces. And we need to build trust, because that is actually what's been eroded. So the leader of 2030 will need to have a number of different mindsets. Number one, of course, is the growth mindset, which a lot of you will have been working on for the last 10 or so years. And that will help us adapt to the speed of change and the changes that AI will make to our organisations at a fairly fundamental level. But if we are about to have different sprints that a leader needs to embrace, we actually need to do more than that. There's BAU, transformation, and there's also crisis management. There's a great Korn Ferry article from September this year that talks about the three mindsets that will help leaders manage in this time of ambiguity. Number one is the purpose mindset, which many of our millennials and especially our Generation Z workforce needs. No longer can a CEO say that we are all working for the benefit of bringing profits to our shareholders. Now, we may be doing all of that, but that cannot be the overarching message, and their pay packet shouldn't be intrinsically linked to that. But, that's a broader issue. We need to have a meaningful purpose that engages and retains our workforce in these permacrisis times. Our people need to believe that they are working towards something worthwhile that will impact both the culture, the future, and our world. Leaders must therefore believe and talk purpose. Whilst season to season, year to year, and technology to technology will change around us, it is this purpose that moves people and builds trust by giving them a sense of belonging to something bigger when external trust is being eroded around them. I've always believed where the purpose motive becomes unhinged from the profit motive, bad things will happen. But a great leader in the age of AI has this deep-seated purpose motive and mindset for themselves and their organisations. And the purpose motive will help to build the trust that engages and helps people build resilience and be more motivated as they come forward. Now, the second mindset is about collaboration, or a collaborative mindset. Ego leadership is gone, and it needs to be gone. This style of individualistic leadership, reminiscent of last century, has got to move on. If we think about the three sprints that the leaders need to embrace as part of their remit, there is transformation and innovation, mostly about embracing and integrating what intelligent technology can offer. But that requires leaders to harness the diversity in their workforce, and that will accelerate innovation and adoption of new ways of working. A critical part of this collaboration is, for example, Zoomers reverse mentoring other generations in intelligent technology, as they are the digital natives and early adopters. If we want to move forward, we must all move together. That is how we will grow our capacity to be more and do more. So, purpose mindset to help us overcome some of the eroded crises that are around there, or eroded trust. Collaborative mindset to help us innovate and embrace AI transformation together. So what mindset do we need to ensure our organisations continue to seamlessly function, to manage business as usual in the face of intelligent technology? Now, that's going to take a lot of courage. Our last mindset for leaders in the age of AI is courage. Jobs will be lost. Roles will be redefined. New roles will be embraced. A leader will do different things. There will be bad news. There will be exciting news. There will be change to embrace. This BAU is critical because it keeps the revenue going to fund the future. What is a courageous mindset? Now, a courageous mindset is the ability to act in spite of fear, anxiety, or difficulty by believing that you can. Yes, this involves being open to change and new perspectives, which is our growth mindset. But actually, courage is more than that. It's about action and choosing to move forward and to encourage others to do so in spite of the challenges. There is a wonderful quality that I alluded to in the previous mindset, which is that collaborative mindset. And it was about leaving the egos at the door and that individualistic style. People with great courage may be self-confident, but they also are often humble. And a courageous mindset involves believing in the ability to meet challenges head on, whilst also being humble enough to accept that mistakes will happen and to learn from. So, AI is defining these mindsets and skills that will drive leaders forward. That is actually the transition from old leadership and what we used to have, leadership that was driving vision and outcomes and strategic outcomes. I wonder if this style is still possible when the changes that will impact us are actually almost being thrust upon us. Perhaps the future is a bit of old and new altogether. As I look at above mindsets, there is also tension. We have a great portfolio of clients in the not-for-profit sector or on non-government organisations. And in fact, Learning Ventures is a very purpose-driven organisation. When we start initial conversations with a new not-for-profit, we're always engaging with their purpose. And by their very nature, these organisations are purpose-driven and have a highly motivated, purpose, mindset-driven workforce. Great, this is essential. However, they are usually very nice organisations with nice people, and you can make a comment if you happen to come from those. That's what we've discovered. And often we are asked to help those organisations build courage, the leadership courage to hold people accountable, the leadership courage to maximise the fundraising dollar for the best client group outcome, the courage to be tough, courageous conversations. Now, the two mindsets of being purpose-driven and being courage mindsets actually are often not innate. They are actually in tension with one another. So sometimes these mindsets don't sit naturally with people and need to be built. Okay, let's hear from you. Honestly, what percent of your leaders has this collective mindset? So are you really, pretty much everyone is in this ballpark? Great work. You're okay, you got pockets, and that's probably most of what we've seen. A lot of organisations will be trying, haven't really set a strategy for what they're going to do with AI. And I think there will be many organisations still that are old-fashioned and are yet to start their journey. So I'll let you have that. And I've actually got some questions too for those of you who put 75%, let us know in the chat what exactly you're doing, because that is great information for everyone to see how you're building this collective mindset. And for those of you who are over 50, and we've got a good 40% or so that are in that 50 to 75% bracket, what's doing the driving of this mindset? So by all means, make comments in the chat, and that will make for a really rich conversation. So I think everyone seems to have there's a few more going through. I might just end the poll and we'll have a look at the results. So as you can see, really in that middle pocket, it's a bell curve. You've got organisations who really are embracing AI and those who are yet to embrace AI. The bulk are still looking at the new world and seeing what their leadership is doing. And you're right, Perrin. Fear of missing out, fear of getting left behind, absolutely is a critical thing in here. Thank you so much for answering the poll and for your comments that are coming through. Great information. Okay, so what makes an adaptive leader as we go through? We've got those mindsets, growth, purpose, collaboration, courage, and that's the mindsets at a deeper level, which actually makes people more adaptable. But what are those skills of a leader? Now, I have actually used this slide before because whilst this talks about the foundational skills of that organisations are going to need going forward, it is actually some of the most reputable data in terms of universal research around. So the World Economic Forum outlines these skills every 5 years. And for 2025, they did actually have their top 10. Now, it involves all the foundational skills that organisations need, like their problem-solving skills, their whole skill set of self-management, digital skills. But from a leadership perspective, it talks about two key skills in the people area, and that is leadership and social influence. So leadership should not be the same as it was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Leadership for 2030 is the behaviours that will help teams align, that collaborate and execute. Now, the only proviso I would add is that the future is moving so fast that sometimes a single clear strategy isn't enough. We may need to have options, these sprints I was talking about, that we need to focus on a number of different things, milestones, and be completely adaptable to a loose vision or strategy that is reviewed and refreshed regularly so that we can embrace some of the intelligent technology that is coming. So today, many organisations are only just embracing what they class as phase one, which is the large language models. And that is ChatGPT, Copilot, or whatever software you've got. It should be a holistic strategy that uses these products to replace parts of workflows. It should be a holistic strategy. In fact, many organisations are not there yet, and actually the responses you gave us suggested that. A lot of organisations just tinkering around the edges. Those large language models and that data is not replacing workflow yet. Yet phase two, which is AI agents, is already here. To keep up with the pace and setting a strategy for phase one is already old news. We should be there. So that 50% fear of getting left behind, I think a lot of organisations are starting to be in that place. The leadership of our organisation needs now to embrace this technology, and the capability of adaptability or adaptive leadership is the model. I prefer to have leaders embrace the growth mindset of yes and. It's the only thing they have to do, yes and. We want to take no out of the picture, which makes them more open-minded rather than critical, and it makes people more adaptable to change. That's what leadership needs to be, open. And in an agile way, adapt to new things, challenge conventional thinking. Adaptive leadership also needs to create psychological safety to encourage innovation, learning from mistakes, honest and transparent feedback. And whilst creating a psychologically safe environment also includes legislative things, it's this leadership skill which is about the culture of open and honest feedback. So you've got adaptive leadership that can create these psychologically safe environments. Adaptive leadership also needs emotional intelligence. Critical number one skill, it's being talked about quite a lot, and we need to develop empathy and care. Our CEOs and executives need to park that individualistic ego and have a leadership style that is the good for everyone. A huge shift for leaders to demonstrate this EQ. We run a whole webinar. We could run a whole webinar on emotional intelligence in today's leaders because it's that insight that is really, really important. And finally, the skill or the key skill in adaptive leadership is the courage to lead. That courageous mindset actually comes into the skills as well. Courage to lead in tough times, but not to overplay your courageousness and be considered aggressive, arrogant, or a micromanager. You need courage, or to be courageous enough to have robust conversations, to solicit feedback, which is sometimes critical and badly given, but to take something from it. There are these four keys that make this adaptive leadership. And that's really what the next stage is, that we need to absolutely accelerate the growth of these four human-centric skills. So leadership is about combining AI fluency to embrace it with strong human-centered skills of emotional intelligence, courage, curiosity, empathy, this care, and all the human-centered skills that will build trust and help people belong during these permacrisis times. The second part, you've got this adaptive leadership, and the second part is this social influence. And social influence involves the intentional effort a person makes to change another person's behavior, belief, attitude, or to bring them along for the ride. That is straight out coaching. And that is the other foundational skill of adaptive leadership. As we build organizations with more independent generations of workers, we must move away from command and control, which we should have anyway, but even to the more distributed leadership, we must move to a coaching leadership style. Again, it starts at the top. A true coaching culture uses ask, not tell, and it taps into people's desire and self-determination. Self-determination theory, which is about being autonomous and responsible and accountable for your own destiny. So shifts to a true coaching culture can deliver huge financial returns. So if we look at measuring the impact, it's enormous, and there's lots of studies out there. Creating a coaching culture is not easy, and it actually does take a lot of time. A 2-hour module or even a day is actually not going to deliver anything. It actually has to be sustained effort over time. So adaptive leadership, inclusive, is these human-centered skills and social influence. They're the critical things. Now, I don't want to be too simplistic, but this is an example of how those skills pay out. So the 2030 leader will be it'll be about the stories they tell. So with a growth mindset and emotional intelligence, these stories will be more motivating, not demotivating. And when we enhance a purpose mindset, they will be important for everyone. So after stories, leaders need to role model all of the human-centric skills. People will follow and work above and beyond when they see an authentic leader role modeling emotional intelligence, courage, all of these human-centered skills. And then you've got stories, role modeling, and then empowering. That is the coaching component. Critical to being an excellent coach is the capability to influence other people, to adapt, embrace intelligent technology, the technology that's coming. There was a paper, and I must admit I don't have the reference, which was saying that one of the key factors at the moment that's the issue is that leaders are not embracing it. People are, the leaders aren't, and the leaders aren't driving it. So the workplace will be flipped. Great adaptive leadership is the combination of all of these skills in the workplace. So who or which organizations have an adaptive leadership style? Let's ask you, and then I can have a read of what Bridget said whilst you're answering those questions. Which are very similar in percentages to the last time that we answered. Yes, and this is exactly right, Bridget, is that we've got to start shifting our organisations to these open-flavoured project teams where collaboration, adaptability and openness are absolutely essential. And then bring in that to add to the workflows, the automation. Great point, Bridget. Thank you. Okay, how are we going? Pockets. I think that's it again. Pockets of leaders. We really are looking at organizations that have a way to grow, and that doesn't surprise me because this is a huge shift. I'll give you another second or two to finish that. Great. Here we go. No surprise, very similar to what we were asking before. And if you've got any comments, by all means, happy to comment in the chat as we go through. So we have got a way to go. Let me talk about some practical steps that will help us on that journey that we go through. So the first thing I'd like to cover is most people would say, oh, okay, we need to do leadership development. But I just wanted to spend a moment on talking about why leadership development fails, because organizations globally spend $500 billion on leadership development. And more often than not, there was a Harvard Business Review that suggests that 80% or 90% of them fail to deliver what they wanted. So let's look at how we can make this really impactful, and then we can move on to what our tips are. So here's some things that are why. Readiness for change, learning agility of the organization. Never underestimate the need for stability in the fixed mindsets of our workforce. So those mindsets that we were talking about, referred to earlier, need to be open and need to change. So we've actually got to set up a readiness for change as we go through. Real world connection of leadership or any development programs. You've got to design learning often that it has to be learning that is decoupled from their reflection and their real business as usual. So we've got to anchor learning in what people do every single day. Often forgotten is that we're changing habits of a lifetime. And we've got to start helping people to do one thing at a time so that they can shift it. And humans can actually only deliberately focus on one change at a time. We can't do 10 things, which is why if we set however many New Year's resolutions, we may or may not only do one. And often when there's too many, we do none that come through. So it's important. And there's some great books about changing habits that we can include. Measuring progress is really important. And I just wanted to put this in here because there's a huge paper that I thought was great in terms of measuring progress. And Karen will load that into the chat now. And whilst it's a bit of a salesy paper, the executive summary in the front end is quite good. What's critical about measuring progress is know what you want to deliver as you go through. Now, we've just delivered a global project for leadership development with an organization, and we linked it not only to their KPIs of growth, but their innovation as well. We measured the results at the end, and that's what has been driving some of the behavior change, because people are really excited about the progress that is being made. And those KPIs and financial returns are part of what the leaders needed to deliver in their BAU anyway. So where the learning links to what I have to do every day and what I have to deliver, really, really important in there. And executive role modeling. So I don't know how many times we need to talk about the fact that if the executives aren't adaptive leaders, any development that we're doing is going to be really, really hard. Now, there's one key thing that will make leadership development successful, and that is develop the right skills. So that is your mindsets, and that is the feedback, emotional intelligence, courage, coaching, those sorts of skills. Some of the other World Economic Forum foundational skills they should have already. So this is our first one. Do leadership development right and do it the right way. That's what's going to change the momentum. So that's tip or step number one. Start with your foundational mindsets. So that's growth mindset, purpose mindset, collaborative mindset, and courage mindset. Interesting to me is that whilst these skills do contribute to people having these mindsets, what we actually have to do in organizations is deliberate activities that are going to shift these mindsets as organizational leaders. Now, we were working with an organization on a change program, and we're now in year 3. Now, we started with the executive team and we designed what they classed as drivers of the business. Now, these drivers included mindsets. They were mindsets we wanted to shift. And they included some of these ones, which was collaborative, creative, customer-focused, courageous, and results-driven. They were the drivers for the change or transformation program. Now, those drivers and mindsets underpinned everything going forward: performance management, innovation, rewards and recognition, strategic projects. They're on the walls, they're everywhere. And it's a little like values, but it's more than values. Values underpin. What these mindsets are is that they drive change. And then it's about developing the right skills that can help people demonstrate those mindsets. So this organisation used those mindsets as an organisational lever. Now, Josh Bersin calls these people with all the mindsets super managers. They have the right mindsets and they have the right human-centred skills to be able to embrace freely the intelligent technology that is coming to supplement their work and that of their people. And he has a graph, which I saw on LinkedIn recently. So all you have to do is look up Josh Bersin, and the graph shows that these super managers are 150% more productive than traditional managers. So there is indeed a financial productivity return for having all of these mindsets and skills. So adaptive leadership and these human-centered skills together are the right mindsets and skills that will give people the ability to drive change in the perma-crisis world. Second top step is coaching. And this is by far the greatest skill organisations need to focus, and deliver. All organisations should have great coaching leaders, but at the moment, all I see is a very small percentage. A coaching leader, or being a coaching leader, is pretty hard. We are brought up in societies, schools, and workplaces that are structured around status, power, and rank. This leads itself to leaders to prefer to tell, and it lends itself to leaders. And whilst they say that they want to share their knowledge to stop, that they've spent a lifetime learning to help others. And whilst it's couched in those terms, it's actually telling people what to do. And unfortunately, people don't like being told what to do. So the basics of motivation are really anchored in people being able to determine their own destiny. So the leadership style that works best for the future is this coaching leadership style. And if you want leaders to coach, how do you develop it? Over the past 10 years, we've been conducting quite a lot of research in terms of the coaching leader. And a leader as coach program needs to be more than sort of 12 weeks or a quarter. I think 12 weeks is about what we've found is actually a good length of time for people to embrace it, and also to log coaching sessions as they go, receive feedback from the coaching, go through a really formal process. It actually sounds like a lot, but I was running a program similar to this with 8 global leaders, senior vice presidents of a large luxury organisation, and it actually took some of these senior leaders up until Module 4, so halfway through this period of time, for the penny to drop of what a coaching leader really is. It actually takes quite a stretch for some leaders to really realise what the difference in leadership style is. Reinforcing also the coaching skills is they need the skills to ask good questions, listening, process, all of those things. So it's and they also be good leadership in terms of coaching leadership also needs to embrace or meld coaching with performance conversations, setting goals and expectations, check-ins, courageous conversations. All of these things need to be melded together in a coaching style. So that's pretty critical going forward. A great performance coach is somebody that's able to have all of these standard conversations in a coaching style. Tip number 3, no surprise. It's all going to take time. Do we have time to do that? I mean, this fast-moving world, do we have time? We actually have to take the time because otherwise people won't change their behaviours. The latest research from Zenga Folkman suggests that the best behaviour change happens when programs are added to and embraced over a 3-year term. The longer they last and are embedded, the better the measurable results. We have one program that's been running since 2017, nearly 8 years. And although it's been refreshed, it's kept up to date. What it does is it drives the leadership behavior of that organization and their general managers forward, and everybody is on the same page. And that is this coaching leadership style. Zenger Folkman also believes that a significant percentage of your leadership cohort need to have made the change or be going through the change. So it's not just about time. It takes time to change. You have to actually put most of your leadership cohort into that in order to get momentum going. So standard sort of bell curve, you've got to have more than 50% moving across. So how does step 3 and the need for time play out in this fast-paced world? If you haven't started now, start. Start with your coaching style. Start with your EQ and those human-centered skills that leaders need. And with adaptive leadership, it needs to then start being embedded, and some of these mindsets and human-centered behaviors embedded in your everyday processes, whether it's rewards and recognition, performance management, all of those things. Now, I think what we've talked about really is the redefining of leadership under these mindsets, these organizational mindsets and levers that are going to drive the business forward to embrace AI. We need adaptive leaders who have these mindsets plus the human-centered skills that they need. And I think you just got to get onto it and start implementing in this, or else we're not going to be moving quick enough. That fear of being left behind, which I think was in the chat, to go forward. Now, I'm actually open for questions at this stage. And whilst we're open for questions, we have got a few minutes left. I'm actually going to refer to a question which I thought was brilliant, which we actually got before the session started. And that was Wayne, thank you. He's been on a number of ours. And his question was, I thought, really quite clever, which was, how do we ensure that our leaders are evaluating talent in a team member's performance, or is it a team member enhanced by AI? So how do we know what it is that we're measuring in the performance? And I guess his last point was, or does it matter? And I guess I'm happy for you to make comments about that question in the chat, because I think it's a really interesting dilemma. And that really is the next stage of leadership and performance management. And it's what is really important. If we've moved, as Bridget was talking about with her organisation, to this team-based and skills-based organisation, most organisations there are measuring outcomes. So it may not matter if the outcome is achieved by 2 people, 2 AI agents, a couple of subject matter experts. The performance metric for those people was the outcome achieved. So I think there's going to be a shift in this as well, and it's a really interesting question. Any other questions in our last minute that we've got? I'm just going to quickly hand back to Zav to wrap up a few things.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I really love the conversation, so it was a great pleasure to be part of this discussion. Just a quick heads up, at Learning Ventures, we are here to help you and to support your organizations. We don't only deliver programs. So happy to connect with you, with your leaders. Please, connect with us on LinkedIn, and I would be very happy to continue the conversation. And of course, I will see you next month for our next webinar, which is on the screen now, which is about strategy days. Thank you very much.
And the link for that, if you want to book straight into that webinar, we'll have some exciting guest speakers on that one from some people who will link what strategy days really mean and how critical they are going forward in this perma-crisis world. So by all means, click on the link and book in for the next webinar. Answer the feedback. We love hearing your feedback. And if there are any other topics that you want to hear from, pop it in. Because we're just designing 2026 and our calendar going forward. So look, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next time or connecting with you in some way to chat further. See ya.